All right, hi everybody, I'm Raphael. Last time I was here up in front was December. So I'm up here now doing my mandatory participation. Yay. And today I'm going to talk about something very near and dear to my heart, and that's network attack collaboration. And I'm going to give you a short preview of what I hope will become a longer talk later. And I'm going to talk about some work I'm doing trying to make it possible for red teams to work together better. How many of you have ever been on a red team of, been on a team of people trying to hack something, more than one person? What usually happens in that environment?
It's clusterfuck.
It's a clusterfuck. It becomes a free-for-all, right?
You step on each other's toes.
Yeah, you step on each other's toes. And I've been a part of the Northeast Collegiate Cyber Defense Competition red team since 2008. And every year we get better at collaborating, but yeah, we have problems, and I feel like our tools limit us. So what I'm going to do tonight is I'm going to talk about Armitage, for those of you who haven't heard of it, just one slide. And then we're going to go into, we're going to talk about collaboration. And I'm going to take some of these things I've experienced from red teaming and explain what I think are the collaboration needs. And we'll go into the inner workings of how Armitage helps out collaboration. And then we'll do a demo. How's that sound?
Cool.
Yeah. Cool. Yarrick is telling me I should stand behind the mic. He's giving me feedback in real time instead of letting me do my presentation. I love you, Yarrick. But gotta let me go, man. So for those of you who haven't heard of Armitage, like I said, it's a GUI for Metasploit. First time I gave a talk on it was here, less than 6 months ago. And it's really, really gone very far beyond my expectations. I'm really pretty, scratching my head about it. It's been on the cover of 2 magazines so far. One in Greece called Total Hacker Magazine, and the Linux Journal this month. So, yeah, if you go out to a bookstore right now, and be honest with you, it's all about the branding. I hired an artist to do the nice Cyber Girl, and the editors just really liked it. So, it makes a big difference. In the upper corner here, something just kind of really blew my mind. This is a cake. Okay? It's a cake with Armitage. I showed up to an event to do some red teaming with a bunch of other people, and I look in the corner, there's this computer with a very fuzzy screen. I go over and ready to start typing on it. Look, it's cake. So, like I said, I wrote a grammar checker before, and nobody ever put it on the cover of a magazine. Nobody ever made a cake out of it. So, pretty cool. So that's just an update on where it's going. We'll see where it continues to go. But with that, I'd like to go into collaboration, because one of my original goals with Armitage when I developed it wasn't necessarily solely to make Metasploit easier to use. I always had this vision of making a tool for red teaming and making it possible for the red team to collaborate. And so when I started working on that problem, it turned out to be much harder than I thought. And in December, when I introduced software, it just didn't have anything to do that, because it was a really hard problem, or it was really hard for me anyways. So here are some of the things I think red teamers need, to define the problem. I feel like they need real-time communication, data sharing, and session sharing. Okay, we're going to go over each of these. First off, real-time communication. For a red team to communicate, you can use internet relay chat. You can walk over and talk to the person. Hey, how you doing? Nice computer you hacked there. Good job. You can also use a whiteboard, whatever. I mean, in my opinion, I think using these different out-of-band methods, I think this is a pretty well-solved problem, or I don't think it's much of a pain point in terms of collaboration. The next problem is data sharing. And we're fortunate. A lot of work's happened in this area. For example, there's the DRADIS framework that was presented at DEF CON 2 years ago. And, coming up on 3, I guess. That's just a tool to normalize the output of a bunch of tools and put the output into a shared repository. Make it so everybody can access that. And also a guy named Ryan Lin, he had this pretty cool vision. He's like, wow, Metasploit's got this RPC interface, and people can connect clients to Metasploit and use Metasploit like a server, right? And Ryan's like, why don't we use Metasploit as our data sharing platform? Why don't we just dump everything to Metasploit's database and right clients for Metasploit to expose it. And so Ryan took the first step in that, and he created a bunch of hooks in Metasploit's RPC interface to talk directly to the database, which is very fortunate because he released this in, I want to say July of last year, and that's about when I started looking at Armitage and started figuring out how I was going to develop it. So it was very fortunate timing, and I really feel like this is a great step in the right direction. So again, I feel like this is a problem area we've made great progress on, okay? Just need good clients for it. And one of the good clients for sharing data, of course, is like the commercial Metasploit products, Metasploit Pro, which does teaming as well. You know, all it builds on this. But the last one, the last building block that makes it hard for us to work together as a team is session sharing.
So we have to talk to each other.
No, we can talk to each other. Some of us even shower sometimes when we go red team.
Shower together?
No. It depends who the red team is.
Can we shower together?
Yes.
How do I join this red team?
Oh, I'm told, I gotta repeat the questions more. The question was, could we shower together? The answer was yes. So.
Where can I sign up?
So let's talk about session sharing real quick. Session sharing is, I hack a computer, I get access to it. How do I make it so my teammates can work with that session? Okay? Because one of the things I've noticed that happens in my red teaming experience is somebody who's really skilled will get into a lot of boxes really fast, and they'll have all these sessions, and they won't have time to do anything with them. Okay? And everybody else is like, hey, how'd you do that? And they try exploiting the same thing. Maybe they crash the box, or what have you. It just becomes a real mess. So 2010 at Northeast CCDC, we had a back door in a bunch of Linux boxes in Chrome tab. And it would download a shell script from our server every hour. And what we did is we had it run netcat and send each of us a shell. Okay? So every hour, 6 of us would suddenly get shells popping up. If you're a college team looking for people hacking your computer, don't you think that's something you might notice? You know, connections going out to 6 different people like simultaneously? Well, they did. They noticed that quite a bit, and basically sharing things, giving everybody an access is kind of, it's a little dangerous. It doesn't work on the stealthy side for you. Carlos Perez, Dark Operator, he wrote a interpreter script called multi-meter inject, which is a nice script to send the interpreter session to somebody else. I really like it. I make a lot of good use of it for passing sessions. But still you have that problem. If you're sharing sessions this way, it still makes it really obvious when there's a lot of new processes and a lot of outgoing connections from a box. So I think session sharing is kind of a problem that needs a little bit of help still. Okay? So let's talk a little bit about what Armitage does in this area. Because I've been working on these 3 problems. Just as a quick review, as you know, when you hack a victim's computer, you end up with an interpreter on it, right? It's a great payload, gives you a lot of post-exploitation functionality. And Metasploit talks to interpreter, just for those of you who aren't familiar with Metasploit. And what I do in Armitage is I use Metasploit's RPC server like a server. It's just running on a shared attack box. And Armitage, all these people, different clients, connect to the shared server. And through the shared server, they can interact with the interpreter. However, as I've described that, if 2 clients try to interact with the same interpreter session at once, bad things happen. It just doesn't work. Sometimes the output goes to the wrong client. Sometimes the session just locks up. Okay? So what I added to Armitage is something called a deconfliction server. And what happens is when you start this, you tell it how to connect to this server, and it sets a variable that Armitage knows to read that says, hey, when you connect here, Armitage, connect to this server as well behind the scenes. And so the Armitage clients connect to both of these servers, and whenever Armitage wants to interact with an interpreter, it sends the commands to this deconfliction server which queues them up and sends them one at a time to the Metasploit, gets the output, and sends it to the right client. This is how I do session sharing. And something else this helps out a lot with. I haven't been here at NoVa Hackers for a while because I've been red teaming a lot past several months. I brought this technology to the Northeast Collegiate Cyber Defense Competition early March, right? February 25th is when I first had this technology in Armitage. And just to give you an idea of how it started out, we had a script. Within the first minute, it gave us 70 sessions, and we had 10 people connected to Armitage. Want to guess what happened?
Crashed.
It crashed terribly. As a developer, I take a lot of pride in my code. I was pretty embarrassed. I'm like, okay, we got it under control, got things working, but I realized I had a scalability issue. So what I did is I started using this deconfliction server as a cache for certain intense commands to alleviate the load on this. And that solved the scalability problem, so I come back to Mid-Atlantic CCDC, where I met Anthony here. Hey, how you doing? And it worked. There were clusters of different teams, and it was a little bit slow there, but it worked, and it didn't crash. And I was like, okay, pretty cool. And I spent some time trying to figure out why the sessions were lagging a little bit. And it's a really long explanation, but I figured some of it out. My changelog's full of like long little stories about this kind of stuff because I was frustrated trying to find it. And I took it to another exercise in April, and it worked phenomenally with like 12 people connected at different times. So technology took a few iterations to kind of get working, get it right, but I'm really happy with where it's come. I'm not saying it's perfect yet, but I really think it's usable now. So I'm pretty excited about. And you're probably like, okay, Raph, you've been up here and you've been telling us about all this stuff. Why don't you show us something, right? Yeah, all right. Let's do this. So first thing I want to show you is I've got an Ubuntu box right here, and this computer is going to be my attack box. And what I've done is I've started up the Metasploit RPC daemon. Okay, I've done it as root. Metasploit, you need to run it as root, and it gives you all this nonsense. It's okay, XML RPC running. Something to point out: I disabled SSL. The Java distributed with the Metasploit full install doesn't include the stuff. It's missing some of the crypto extensions, so it can't talk SSL. It gets a key error. Something to be aware of. But anyways, I start up the Metasploit RPC daemon. And then what I do is I run Armitage in server mode. And all I do is I give it the IP address of the server. It actually needs not 127.0.0.1. It needs the actual IP address of the server. I give it the port, username, password, and a 0 for SSL. Say no SSL. And what it comes back with, it tries to connect to Metasploit, and it says, okay, everything's cool. Feel free to connect your clients and give them these parameters. It gives you the database stuff and everything. So this is my attack server, this lovely Ubuntu box that I'm shaking. Let's go ahead and connect a couple clients to it. Well, first off, I've got right here on my Macintosh, I've got Armitage connected. I'm going to start up an Armitage client at my backtrack box as well. And I'm going to put in the IP address 192.168.95.223. And since the database is actually already set up, I don't actually need to change this. So I'm going to just click connect. And we hope it works. Oh, network is unreachable. That's no good. Let me just make sure I get an IP address real quick. What's that? Give it just 1 minute. I would tell clever jokes right now, but I want to see this work. What's that? I'll tell you. Well, actually, since this is going online, I don't want to be targeted of anything. Might. Slowest DHCP ever. That's all right. If this doesn't work, I'll just connect a second client from my Mac. It's no big deal. That's crazy. All right, so let me try one thing real quick. But what I'm going to show you is once we, oh, bridged, that's why. That makes sense. Let's do this. So what I'm going to show you next is once we have all these clients connected, I'm going to show you examples of the data sharing. I'm going to show you an example of the event log for real-time communication. And I'm also going to show you session sharing. So that's what's coming up. Pretty exciting stuff. So now we've got an IP address. Got my parameters correct. I'm going to click connect. And it asks me for a nickname. So I'm going to put in NoVa Hacker. It says, OK, collaboration set up.
What if you use the same nickname?
I guess it's not really a big deal. Shouldn't. I mean, it's not like IRC. There's no full implementation of stuff. I mean, it's just what it prefixes to your messages. So what you can see here, though, huh?
You can talk to yourself.
You can talk to yourself. Well, what I'd like to show you, though, now that we're set up, is you can see right here, I've got these two hosts. This is Armitage's table view, if you happen to have a lot of hosts, like 100 of them or more. And here I am. I've got the same host on my Mac client, right? So already you can see example of shared situational awareness. But one of the things the Armitage gives you is this event log, where you can see, kind of like IRC, who joined, and you can actually type to each other. And let me go ahead and open up an event log here. And I can respond, be like, oh, like 99 male, Fairfax. 14 both, yeah, something like that. I'm from the FBI, whatever. But here's an example, though, of like a shared event log. But what's cool is when you take and do big actions, like if I launch an exploit here, we're going to use MSO 67. When I do that, it actually dumps something to the event log saying, hey, this person launched an exploit. And you can see it in both of the clients, okay? And you can also see that, hey, there's an interpreter session opened up. And you can see right here, kind of, what my favorite thing, lightning bolts. It's like, okay, we've got a host. But remember, this is the box we actually launched the attack from. It's from this Mac. But now the Macintosh and the Backtrack box both have access to the same thing. So that's an example of the event log, some of the stuff it does. Let's do session sharing now. So, of course, something else I'd like to point out, one of the most painful things with Metasploit, if you're using a remote server, like Amazon's EC2, it generates a lot of local files. Like if you take a screenshot, it generates that file locally, and you have to SFTP in and grab it, right? Well, Armitage, as a remote client with this screen sharing stuff, or sharing stuff, it'll actually automatically bounce files to you. So if I take a webcam shot, you can kind of see that, it'll actually bounce the files transparently for you to your local client. So it's a nice way to manage Metasploit remotely as well. I'll do a screenshot because that'll probably come through a little bit clearer. Just click on it, it pops up a save dialog. So that's just an example of that, but let's do the session sharing, okay? I'm going to open up a command shell on this host, session interpreter 1, okay? And here I've got a nice little command shell, and I can type some commands, like netstat. And you can see here there's only, whatchamacallit, 192 and 68. There's only one connection, no, two, something else. But if I go over here to my other client, my Backtrack client, I'm going to open up a command shell too, interact command shell. I can go to my own directory. I can do an ARP, an ARP command, whatever. If I really want, maybe I want to dump all the files on the system, start getting them a screen full at a time, and it'll just go through that for me. And while that's going on, from this other box, I can still continue interacting with that same shell, or with a different shell through the same session. And that's made possible because Armitage is queuing all the different reads and writes to those different command shells. So it's able to intermix all these things that everybody's doing at once.
So if you're in a TCP down
Yeah, like a zipper. So it's pretty cool because each command shell has its own interpreter channel, and Armitage just interacts with that. And so when you interact with the command shell in Armitage, you're just interacting with that interpreter channel, and it just works. And you can both open up interpreter tabs and run a command. Interact, interpreter shell. If I type, like I'll just type the, help, run idle time, for example. If I go over here to my other client, which is still faithfully dumping stuff, interpreter 1, interact, interpreter shell. If I happen to not know better and I type the shell command, Armitage will intercept that and open up a new command shell tab. So you don't, when you run shell, you don't actually end up taking over the interpreter session for everybody else. So that's an example of session sharing. But what's really cool about that, keep in mind the magic trick here, we're doing a big dump of data. One of the cool things I can do is while it's going on, I'm going to set up a pivot. And I see two networks here, okay? 172.168.0. I'm going to click Add Pivot. It's like, okay, route added. Now I'm going to right-click, Interpreter, ARP Scan. I'm going to say I want to scan this network. And what Armitage is doing is it's scanning that private network, via an ARP scan. And both the clients will see the hosts as they pop up, and they're both interacting with the session. And so we get a bunch of stuff back. And what I'm going to do, I'm just going to right-click these two hosts, highlight them, click Scan. And Armitage is going to run Metasploit's discovery scans through that pivot. And what I want to illustrate here while I'm showing you this, I've got another demo that's really cool that I'm going to show you with this. But what I want to illustrate is that you can have a team, a red team, doing multiple jobs through that same session. One person can be on the box doing stuff on the command line, looking for files. Another person can be scanning and exploiting stuff through a pivot. You can have multiple people actually doing post-exploitation, whatever you need. You can have it happen all at once, okay? And you can see here I've got these two hosts. Well, and I've got this Linux box right here. And it's like, okay, I've got all this stuff. I can see all the data in either client. You just scroll over, right-click. Just want you to see the services. We both see the same stuff. But one thing I've come to realize is not everybody wants to use Armitage, right? Some people do. A lot of people do, I hope. But not everybody does. A lot of people have their own tool sets, and you should use the right tool for the job, right? Well, something that's really cool, if you're using Armitage for situational awareness and you're setting up these pivots, is you can do, let me just do a table view. It's a little clearer to look at. You can see a pivot set up. You can set up a SOX proxy in Metasploit. Just go to Armitage SOX proxy. I'm going to make it port 1080. Click Launch. And what I'm going to do to get at that Linux box is I'm going to use proxy chains to SSH to that box through the pivot. Okay, this is a really cool trick. What I've done is run Metasploit's internal SOX proxy that anybody can access now, anybody on my team. And Metasploit's SOX proxy takes any traffic it receives and routes it as if it was using its normal internally generated traffic. So if you do an exploit in Metasploit, it'll send it through a pivot. If you try to connect something through Metasploit's proxy server, it'll use your pivots. Okay? That's pretty cool. So what we're going to do, let me go to my backtrack box. And there we are. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to open up, this is by default on backtrack, by the way. I'm going to open up etsyproxychains.conf. Okay? And I'm going to change the SOX4 setting to just the IP address, 192.168.95.223, port 1080. Save it, and that's all I need to do. Proxy change is set up, okay? So if I've got a tool that uses TCP to connect, not UDP, like if I want to get to this Linux box, I can just do, just another example of how a team can work with this stuff. Proxy chains SSH 172.168.161. Let's do MSF admin at. And now I've got a shell on that host through the pivot Metasploit has that's on another Metasploit server, and I can do whatever I want through it. Okay? That's another example of, I mean, it's Metasploit functionality, but Armitage is exposing it, the super multi-hop here through proxy pivots. So that's something else that's cool. If everybody has this shared view of the data, they know where you've got sessions, they know where you've got pivots, people can use their own tools to get at other stuff through proxy chains. So that's my demo. In practice, this isn't a very good picture because of contrast, but this is an event I was at in April. You can see we've got Armitage up on the big screen. Got all these different sessions, the event logs open, and everybody in the room was able to kind of like look up and say, oh, okay, here's where we've got pivots, and people were able to go jump onto Armitage to access these different hosts. People were able to use proxy chains to get at hosts inside the networks that the students had set up. You know, some of them set up natting, and it was a very common defense practice, but didn't do much good against us. So that's an example of Armitage helping out with red team collaboration. Can't see this that well, but the timestamp that's at 3 in the morning is a 24-hour exercise. This is pretty tired. But now to kind of wrap things up, I'd just like to say tonight, showed you a little bit about where Armitage has gone since I last spoke to you in December. You know, it's been working on this collaboration stuff pretty hard. Talked about the collaboration needs, communication, data sharing, and session sharing. I showed you how that worked with the deconfliction server. We did a little bit of a demo. Some things I hope to talk about later is a little bit more in depth on how the multiplexing works, and talk about how this really has impacted red team organization where I've been taking this technology. It was kind of rough at first. It wasn't where I wanted it at Mid-Atlantic CCDC, but this most recent event, it really exceeded my expectations. So I hope you'll try it out. I hope it'll help you out. And with that, I'll take any questions. Chirp, chirp. Yes?
For your server,
Yeah.
are you running it as on Ubuntu on Amazon Cloud or CentOS, or what's your preferred setup?
You can do any of those. So the question was, for your preferred server, for using Armitage and Metasploit as a server that a team can share, what is the preferred setup for doing that? And my answer is generically just Linux. I haven't tested it on Windows. I don't really like supporting Windows very much. It's a lot of work for me. But Linux, if you use Linux and the Metasploit full install, you'll be fine. So, other questions in the back?
Are people collaborating with you? Are you open to that, or is it just you right now?
So the question was, are people collaborating with me, or is it just me? And the answer is, right now it's just me. And it depends on how you want to collaborate. I'm definitely open to ideas and would love to talk. So, anything else? Yes, in the back.
Are you running into information overload for red teams now? And the other thing is, does the ideal setup seem to be heading towards a really high resolution setups for red teams because there's so many different sessions?
So the question was, with this sharing in place, is the red team running into an information overload type of situation? And do I see the future as being multiple, everybody having access to the same thing and working off the same picture? Is that a good summary of it?
Yeah.
Here's my answer on that. This is really a talk in of itself, but what I started to see when this technology is working correctly is specialization, okay? What I saw was really cool is you had like an access team. There's always people who are really good at getting on boxes. Georgia, I'm looking at you. I worked with Georgia at Mid-Atlantic, and she was the one shoveling shells over to me. There's an access team, and when you've got an access team, their job is just to get as much stuff as they possibly can. And then somebody should be focusing on persistence, maybe maintaining just one callback for stuff to come back to, low and slow. And that persistence guy, when he gets stuff, he should be sending it to a shell Sherpa. That's the role I've been playing. And that's the person maintaining the Armitage server with this pool of shared access. And then everybody else would be taking on specialties and post-exploitation. So it's not really information overload because everybody's got different jobs. And something I saw in the last event I was at that really impressed me is people were doing this, people were using proxy chains to get at different stuff. And the post-exploitation people, you had people just doing the normal, I'm going to go get the flag files, submit them where they need to go. And then there are other people at the same time focusing on writing scripts to automate this. But because everybody's able to do that at the same time, nothing was really getting lost. The person whose job it was to get the stuff right away and submit it, that person knew who he was. The person whose job it was to go in on the Windows side and try to script that up and needed to experiment around in the students' boxes, that person was able to do it unhindered. So with the right tools that allow true collaboration, not just data sharing, it is possible to have specialization of roles. So that's kind of where I see it going. It's really, really exciting. Anything else? Yeah. So go ahead in front, you orange shirt.
What's the lowest amount of RAM you've been able to get Armitage running as a server?
As a server, it likes RAM. I'm just going to suggest 2 gigabytes, but actually, in other work, I've actually had it running like in a 768 megabyte, I think EC2 instance, like the micro instance. So it'll work. If you don't have enough RAM, it's going to hurt your scalability. How's that? But if you just got like 2 people connecting, you could probably be fine on a low RAM machine. And you had a question in the back?
Are the DoD oriented teams lining up along basically activities rather than specializations such as the network team, the Unix team, those kind of things?
I have no. So the question was about how DoD oriented teams organize themselves. Be honest, I really don't know the answer to that question. So, anybody else that know the answer? Want to lose your clearance?
Is this the DoD where one group is doing it, another group is doing something totally different?
My goal is just to put these ideas out there, and I'd like to see these ideas put into other tools. You know, because I feel like our tools assume a single user right now, and they assume teaming is a good selling point, but don't really do it to the point where it is going to change the way people work. Any other questions? Yes?
What about collaborating other bits of data that's helpful, like someone gets a password and that can be reused, or, you know, because this seemed like very shoveling focused.
So what's pretty cool in Armitage is actually the credentials database. I don't have anything in it right now. Is actually shared. And we were, last event I was at, using this to great effect, where people would dump hashes, like there was somebody going around dumping hashes on boxes, and some people would go and click this export button and get a PW dump format of the file and start cracking it. So it worked out really well for actually sharing credentials to try and sharing credentials to crack. Well, you can do pass the hash in Armitage too. I demoed that before. Right click, login. Well, you could do login with PSExec, and when Metasploit has successful login, it stores a credential, and it would just show up in this credentials database. Oh, log in with it, use it somewhere, and it'll come back in. Or use commands in the Metasploit console. Have it expose the functionality to add passwords.
I think they're suggesting a notes page.
That could be really valuable.
For another column there showing what the correct password is.
It's sort of like it's sort of like Dradis where you can add comments and notes.
So one note I want to say real quick, and then I'll get off stage, and I've taken up probably enough time, but I really scoped Armitage and this teaming stuff to Metasploit. Like Metasploit does a lot, but I'm a real firm believer in using the right tool for the right job. And so my goal is to make it possible to work with as many tools as possible and get your data out so you can work with other stuff. And I just wanted to make it possible to at least do the session sharing and the data sharing with what Metasploit exposes. So that's more of a scoping thing right now.
Well, you said that you wanted to interact with external tools, so is there like an export button where you can just, all these results and export it into some other...
Are you exposing the DB export stuff?
Yeah.
I think is what he's asking, because you can actually export it from Metasploit and then put that into like the whole thing. Like,
Oh, yeah. Well, you can always run the console command too. Just open up a console
What
tab.
he's asking is you can export all your stuff from Metasploit and think and put that into Dradis after that.
I haven't played with it. I'll have to take and check that out. So, well, thank you very much, guys. Anybody else has questions, come see me. So.